our house at the moment there's a lot of talk about picnics, and that's because this week the Cambridge Citadel family are finally getting together for the first time in more than a year for a picnic. And because of current restrictions on numbers, we're actually spreading everybody over 3 picnics. It's going to be absolutely fantastic.
Well, this got us thinking about the kind of food that we would take on a picnic. Usually sandwiches, maybe a sausage roll or 2, always something to drink, maybe a flask of tea or some kind of juice. But as Martin and I will be attending 3 picnics, we'll maybe have to be a bit more creative with our food choices.
Yeah, we don't want to be eating 14 sausage rolls over 3 days, that's for sure. Well, it's a wonderful privilege to be able to think about what we might eat, to have choices. But these are most definitely first world problems. On planet Earth, not everyone is so fortunate. We wonder whether you've seen on the news actually that the UK government is considering cutting its overseas aid budget.
Yes, and this is a challenging decision to be made in a challenging time, and we don't envy those who have to make these judgment calls. We took a quick look at some of the global statistics relating to the distribution of food, poverty, etc., and this is some of what we found.
According to a report from the United Nations food agencies, about 8.9% of the world's population, that's 690 million people, go to bed on an empty stomach each night. And even here in Britain, according to The Big Issue, there were nearly 6 million adults and 1.7 million children who were struggling to get food between September 2020 and February 2021.
Scary stuff, and these huge numbers remind us that because there is not equity in our world, we need to do all we can to share what we have. So as we think about God's provision and how we should be generous in what we have, please share with us in a prayer of confession that is inspired by Psalm 23.
Loving God, Jesus likened your kingdom to a banquet and invited his followers to eat and drink at the table in remembrance. But when he saw injustice, he turned over the tables in the temple. We honour you, generous God, for the abundance of creation. You prepare a table before us.
We thank you, generous God, for giving manna to the Israelites and to us when we find ourselves in places of wilderness.
You prepare a table before us. We praise you, generous God, for the gift of Jesus, who modelled faithfulness to you and who feeds us with holy food and drink. You prepare a table before us.
We admit, gracious God, that we have failed to assure that our neighbours at home and abroad have access to the food they need.
Overturn the tables in our hearts. We confess, gracious God, our struggles to trust in your abundance. Overturn the tables in our hearts.
We acknowledge, gracious God, our silence when we should have spoken, and our passivity when we should have acted to end hunger.
Overturn the tables in our hearts. And so, loving God, we ask for strength that we might do your will and live with faithfulness and integrity. Prepare a table before us.
Surely your goodness and unfailing love will follow us all the days of our lives, and we will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen.
And amen. Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll be back next week, but in the meantime, keep on praying because
prayer matters.